films and art talk about the experience of a migrant or an immigrant. But the bigger question is, I think, when you understand why do they leave? Mm-hmm. What do they leave behind? A whole lifetime you leave behind to move. What makes you move? And because it is not just monetary, it's not just like a livelihood. I think it's also existential and moral, because you're in search of dignity.
We love foreign films at Inside the Art House. When they work, they're more than entertainment. They're a passport, a way to step into another part of the world and experience its rhythms, its customs, and its contradictions in a way that no tour bus ever could. In director Neeraj Ghaywan's Homebound, we feel the pressure and injustice confronting two lifelong friends trying to get ahead in contemporary India, one Muslim and the other Dalit, as their bond is tested by forces far bigger than either of them. Inspired in part by a New York Times report from 2020, Homebound doesn't look away from the realities of caste discrimination, religious prejudice, and the everyday humiliations that shape opportunity and survival. And in a devastating final act, the film captures the life-shattering consequences of the COVID-19 lockdown, especially for migrant workers who are among the hardest hit by the pandemic's economic fallout. Executive produced by Martin Scorsese, Homebound has emerged as a standout in the Best International Feature Oscar conversation, and it shouldn't be counted out. The film's director, Neeraj Ghaywan, was in Los Angeles for screenings, and Greg jumped at the chance to sit down with him in person at the Royal Theatre for a one-on-one conversation. We invite you to listen in on that conversation on Inside the Art House, starting now.
Hi, my name's Greg Laemmle, and welcome to today's episode of Inside the Art House. I'm flying solo today without my usual co-host, Raphael Sbarge. But we both are here or we both would like to welcome our guest. It's the director of the film Homebound, Neeraj Ghaywan.
Thank you for having me over, Greg.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to have you here. We're filming this. It's January. We're right in the middle of the Oscar race, and Homebound is the Indian entry for Best International Feature, and it has made the shortlist. So yes. I guess we're a little bit of a campaign effort, but one worthy. I mean, it's quite an honor to be at this point. How do you feel about that?
I'm quite ecstatic, and I'm also nervous at the same time. And we're doing everything possible. The company that produced this, Dharma Productions, they're doing everything possible because, it's the 98th year and we still never crossed the barrier of the top 5. And so it's a cumulative responsibility.
So no Indian film has ever been nominated for Best...
Nominated, but never won.
Never won. Okay, got it. Yeah.
So there have been 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But never won. And we've been... So we're doing everything possible because it's just a cumulative responsibility of all of Indians.
Right.
And also the crew and the cast and also the people that we're representing in the film. Mm-hmm. There are these millions of Shoaibs and Chandans out there and their truth to be honored. So that's where the penchant is, mm-hmm. to give it your all. But at the same time, personally, if you ask me, I have no expectations. I just want to work hard,
right,
and whatever comes my way.
Yeah, well, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, we'll circle back to this, but I'd like to talk about maybe ask you, the genesis for the film. Mm-hmm. I understand it started with a New York Times article.
Yes.
From 2020 that was brought to your attention, and what happened after that?
My producer introduced me to that. The op-ed that was written by Basharat Peer. And this article, this essay was about, there's a true story that happened in India where a Muslim boy and a Dalit boy, they were migrants, they were childhood friends, and it's their story without having to give any spoilers. And in that story, when I read it, obviously it's the episode of what happens in the film towards the third act. And I was quite moved by the story. And at the same time, I felt that this is an opportunity to speak about a lot of things that affect me personally and as a citizen. One of the things that always made me question was that, when so I come from a marginalized community myself. I am a Dalit. It's I don't know how much you know about caste in India. It's a 2,000-year-old social structure where in down the hierarchy you are devalued as you go down further, and even outside the hierarchy are the people who are considered the erstwhile untouchables, and even till date we do not get dignity. We're not mainstream enough. We're not occupying majority spaces, even though we have majority population of 25%.
Wow.
And so what's happening is 15% of the population represents 90% of state apparatuses. Academia, judiciary, art, all places are monopolized. One of the examples I must give you is that in all of Hindi cinema, I'm not saying Indian cinema, there are many, but Hindi cinema, the Bollywood that you call, I'm the first person from my community out of the 25% population.
To direct a film?
To be acknowledged Dalit person.
Wow.
In all of history of Hindi cinema.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry for the digression.
No, it's I think it's important.
Yeah,
it's important background information.
So in that, I felt that this boy, and also how religious persecution and caste persecution are sort of shaping the society at the moment. And the plural and the syncretic nature that we had is slowly getting wounded. And this phenomena is observed around the world now. You know, how bigotry is defining how we see humans, or how we unsee people. We make them unseen, invalidated, and
Dehumanized.
Dehumanized. And the attempt was that this is an opportunity for me to tell their stories and reclaim them from abstraction, because most of the time they are mentioned as statistics. You rob their humanity, right? So the attempt was to maybe pick 2 migrants out of these millions of statistics that we quote everywhere, and to see the people behind it, to see their love, to see their friendship, to see what they like, what they eat, you know. And then again, the bigger question that also was gnawing at my back was, and this is a universal question, why do migrants leave their homes and move to cities? It is a question that we in the urban world are oblivious to. You know, because we talk about, oh, there are thousands of migrants who walked, and we say that and we sort of feel less guilty because we offered our hollow sympathy. But there's no accountability. And I thought that people got to know that because mainstream spaces and media and films and art talk about the experience of a migrant or an immigrant. But the bigger question is, I think, when you understand, why do they leave? What do they leave behind? There's so many dreams. There's so many people, a whole lifetime you leave behind to move. What makes you move? And because it is not just monetary. It's not just like livelihood. I think it's also existential and moral, because you're in search of dignity, because you're not getting it. And in India specifically, there are roughly about 500 to 600 million internal migrants. Of the majority are marginalized because they want to escape the shame. They want to escape the loss of dignity. And it's strange, Greg, you know, because because in India, names carry everything. They move to cities so that they could become anonymous. And then that anonymity
escape their name, perhaps, but yeah.
And that anonymity gives them their identity. It's so ironic.
Yeah.
So all of these things were at the back of my head.
Was this all in the story, or just by reading the story in the paper that you sort of knew, because you knew these people?
You know, because I unraveled as I went along because, for me, just that third act wasn't enough.
Right.
I felt that, that again, it would be again that patronizing gaze of looking at atrocity and victimhood, but not seeing the root of it, not seeing, it was important to know in what why did they come, why did they move the cities, what happened to them. That was also very important to me.
Right. Why didn't they stay put, during this global shutdown?
Yeah.
What was motive? Yeah. So getting that backstory. Did you research the particular individuals in this case, or did you sort of...
Well, yes. Mohammad Shayub and Amrit Kumar, the real people, I hung out with Shayub. He's a survivor. And he was not very forthcoming. He was quite introvert. So I had to, spend some time. And Amrit Kumar's family I met, they couldn't speak to me. They would only cry.
You're right.
And, it was gut-wrenching, Amrit's family, I went exactly like the house that we shown in the film. It's barren, nothing in it. And it was just this half-torn Ambedkar, this leader. His photograph was there. And it shook me so much. And then I realized that, that the thing that he's introvert sort of helped me. And I'll tell you why. Because I thought that I need to create backstory. I need to understand all of it. I couldn't get much out of him. And I thought, this is an opportunity. Why don't I speak to the millions of Shoaibs and Chandans? It became a cumulative representation. So I toured around villages and I met a lot of people who are like them, who were aspiring for the same exam, who were aspiring for dignity, and who probably also became eventually migrants. And I come from academia, so I research a lot. And I tend to not draw from imagination. I want to draw from reality. Even the smallest things like, the microaggressions that we show in the film. We spoke...
Some not so micro, but yeah.
Yeah, But in the largest scheme of things, we noted down, we spoke to people, and even those I didn't want to imagine. I didn't want to reinvent. It had to represent exactly how it was. So we picked up from real people telling us about how they were. And obviously they were much, much worse, but yeah.
Yeah. You know what, let's take a look at a clip, sort of as a way to talk about the plot of the film a little bit more beyond this. This is a scene where we we see our two lead characters, not where we meet them, but we see them at a juncture where some of their dreams are starting to unravel a little bit.
Yes.
So let's take a look at a scene from the film Homebound.
कोई खैरात में मेवा नहीं बट रहा है, हमारे हक का है। साला अफसर तो गधा था ही, तुम भी कम नहीं हो बे। काय हर बार जनरल में भरते हो? चौड़ में जाके टिक लगाओ एसी वाले डिब्बे पे। साला किसी के औकात ना हो
क्या कि हम डरते हैं कि कल को पुलिस में भर्ती होने के बाद भी ये लोग थाने में झाड़ू ना लगाए हमसे। पूरे 7 विकेट चटका के मैच जिताए हम, पर कंधे पे बैठ के पूरा गांव कौन घुमा? वो सुगलवा। हक हमारा था, पर जब ट्रॉफी लेने की बारी आई तो फिर से हमारी जात दिख गई।
साले, तुम तो मानते हो ना कि तुम मैन ऑफ द मैच थे? हाँ?
सब हम चाहे जितने विकेट उखाड़ लें, एक सरकारी फार्म की कैटेगरी वाले डिब्बे भर की औकात है हमारी, और बस वहीं तक सीमित है, वही हमारी पहचान है।
So when we meet, our two protagonists, they're going to take a test to join the police force, which I guess is obviously, one way of advancing in society and having
dignity.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet,
and yet
we're seeing probably,
See, there is a mad frenzy, and there are many exams like these. to get into the government jobs, because there is that gives you security, that gives you longevity, because there is affirmative action, which Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, one of our staunch leaders, he's one of the biggest leaders of our country. He was the architect of the Constitution. He fought for many rights. He's sort of like the MLK of India.
Yeah.
And he brought about that. And those things are still only in the government jobs. Sorry for a little bit digression.
No. Look, one of the great things about foreign language films is that it allows us to, to go to another place and to see and try and learn more about that country, more than we can see. And sometimes you can see more from on a movie screen than you can see in a tour bus. I think it's,
Yeah, it's a window to a world.
Yeah.
And so in India, there is that thing where, so there is a lot of shaming that happens of claiming affirmative action, which is rightful. So people think that you're a hoarder, you're, undeserving, you're whatever, it's been a privilege that's been accorded to you.
Right.
Nobody thinks of that as reparation. Nobody thinks of that as social justice. And so it's only in the government jobs. So there is a lot of talk about DEI in India. Mm-hmm. And in private jobs, which is the majority of jobs, there is this newfound enthusiasm, and there's a corporate stipulation to put in DEI. There is, of course, women. There is the physically handicapped. Lately, there have been a lot about LGBTQI rights. Mm-hmm. But no private organization will talk about DEI for Dalits. None of them.
That's just the third rail of Indian society.
And that's 16% of the population. And if you include the tribals, the aboriginals, that's 25%, has been excluded from this. So that's why the penchant to get into a government job, because there you at least get some affirmative action. And that's why there is every year, in fact, the opening that you see, the opening scene, is much worse. Mm. They actually climb on top of trains to get to an exam center.
Right.
And of course, I didn't get permission to shoot that way. But that is the frenzy that they go with. And the boys in question, what happens is that they've been systemically denied and unseen and shamed throughout their lifetimes. So they feel that if they wear the uniform, nobody's ever going to question them. Do you ever read the name on the badge of a cop?
Right.
You look at the uniform and like, okay, then I need to do what this person is asking me to do.
Right.
So that they think, and also it's not like a police officer, it's a constable. Because the lowest rank, because these guys are not graduates, so they can only dream as much. And even the smallest dream is so difficult to get through. And They have to wait for over a year. And this results and not come, and they're anxious. Yeah.
Right, but they encounter this in other places too. Obviously, they're talking about a cricket match, and we see at the match, how they succeed and how there's a moment of joy, and yet that joy is taken away from them even there. It's got to be so difficult to survive, to maintain your dignity through that.
Yeah, they'll, like what Chandan is pointing out at that point is this: he's going back to a childhood story. Not childhood, like a recent story, where he's got most of the wickets that made their village team win the match, win the tournament. So they use him to win because he's talented. But when it comes to claiming the victory, it's the upper caste people who take away the glory. Mm-hmm. And they do not let him even touch the trophy. Wow. So that is what he's talking about. And even for Shoaib, it's like he's very good at it. But when he is taking the wickets and he's too good, he's unwelcome. Mm-hmm. They tell him to go play with your own people.
Right.
What I mean?
Yeah, I saw, yeah. Well, so who is your audience, I guess, at some level? I mean, because this is illuminating, obviously, for foreign audiences who are not necessarily, there are echoes of American society in what we see in the film, but certainly the cast is an overlay, I guess, that we can't quite grasp in the same way as our own
Yeah.
Policies.
But, Greg, like,
But are you making the film? How was the film? And how was this received in India for a domestic audience?
There's a thing where people say how the more local you are, the more universal you get. Because I think it speaks to people who are unseen by power. And it could be India, it could be America, it could be Europe, it could be anywhere. And it speaks to people in that moment of being unseen systemically, how you want to hold on to your dignity and how you have the audacity to claim your power. I think it speaks to people that way, and which is why I think it's very universal. And the reaction, be it in Cannes or the multiple festivals around the world that we've been to, or in India, the reaction has been exactly the same way. India, of course, it was way more. We had a nice, very big premiere that we did. We had like 4 screens, very big auditoriums filled. And the whole of film industry was invited. And it was a moment because as I got out, see so many people crying, so many people coming and holding onto my hands and saying, thank you for making this. Thank you for making us aware of our privilege. And thank you for shaming us, which was so necessary. And so many people remember their own times, not even linked to the film, but they went into deep introspection. And, this is like it released very small way in India. But everybody, they don't wait for the credits. They just leave, right? So apparently in this film, that everybody sits through the credits. And I must tell you, Greg, this one very beautiful moment that happened that somebody not tweeted, like they wrote it on X for me. They said, so there were a bunch of people who went to watch the film, and it was early days. The theaters were not very packed screenings, because these kind of films have no audience in India anyway. So these boys were sitting, and they were quite like gutted by the film, and they were like moved, and they were overwhelmed by it, and then they took a beat to like realize, like a couple of them were crying and whatnot, and they were about to get up as the credits halfway through, and they saw across the row there's one man who was sitting and bawling out, and they decided to stay back to give him company, and they let it all finish. Then they went and held him. They took him out, offered him tea, and spoke to him. That is the big, big thing for me. That is exactly what I was trying to do with this film.
Right, get people to...
Yeah, to empathize.
Right, well, we have to feel something before we can learn something.
Exactly.
I think sometimes, and especially sometimes about things that we learn about ourselves and our society.
Yeah.
And our...
I mean, art, like in some cinema, is a way that can connect at a deeper level. In that sense, like it will become your own. Like you tend to empathize with the pain so much that it becomes personal. And I wanted it to become personal.
Right.
It didn't have to be just a news story. It didn't have to be just an op-ed. It had to become their story. That's why many people would relate with their own personal things and where were you when the pandemic was announced? Where were you in the lockdown? Everybody goes back to that moment.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, there's another moment in the film I'd like to take a look at that you talked about microaggressions earlier, but this is like a major aggression.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at another scene from Neeraj Ghaywan's film, Homebound.
बोलो क्या हुआ, क्या बात है?
देखिए मिश्रा जी, हमको इस औरत से कोनो व्यक्तिगत बैर नहीं है। हम बस इतना कह रहे हैं कि इसके हाथ का बना खाना हमारे बच्चा नहीं खा सकते बस।
हमारी बिटिया बच्चन को हाथ पकड़ के बाथरूम ले जाते है। जब बीमार होते है तो अपने हाथन से दवाई भी खिलाते है। तब नहीं होता धर्म भ्रष्ट। अन्न उठा के फेंक दिया, बताओ
कहा तो क्या गलत किया? अरे ये लोग इतना समय से जो काम कर रहे हैं वो ही करे ना। अरे इसका छुआ खाना हम सब के...
कौन सा शब्द बोल रही है? ध्यान है ना कि बुलाए पुलिस को। रुको, देखिए ये नौकरी फूल का संवैधानिक हक है। SC SP एक्ट लग सकता है आप पे।
मिश्रा जी, अपना संविधान अपने पास रखिए। आया बात समझ में? ये महिला कल से यहाँ दिखनी नहीं चाहिए, वरना एक को बच्चा कल से स्कूल नहीं आएगा।
हाँ नहीं आएगा, सही बात है। आए आएंगे हमारे बच्चे।
यही संस्कार हैं आपके बच्चों के लिए। ऐसे ही नए समाज बनाएंगे आप लोग।
Oh, yeah. And that's a portrait of B.R. Ambedkar, who I guess is in almost, you see that portrait in several homes in the film. But just that feeling, I mean, she's looking to him and it's like, you know, you gave us hope.
Yeah.
And yet.
Yet here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah. You know, when recently, I'm talking about like a month back, what we've shown, it happens so often.
Mm-hmm.
Like the same episode happened in a school where the kids said that we won't want to eat food made by her. So the parents said that either you sack her or our kids won't come. And slowly the kids stopped coming. But the woman filed a case. And she won.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a speck, you know. And it happens so often that untouchability is abolished, but in the villages and some places still, there is that practice that goes on. And it is so dehumanizing to think that in this world that you think that her own daughter works in the school. She plays around, helps them, you know, she's the nurse sort of thing in India with the kids. Her job is okay, but they don't want the mother to be cooking food. And you know, the headmaster, the principal in the school, he's also from an upper caste background, but he's kind to her. You know, also that's another thing that I wanted to mention to you earlier. It's just, I think people fail us. It's not communities that we should like. I don't want to blame an entire set of community. If you see here that the school principal was from an upper caste background, from a privileged caste background, and the tormentors were also from the privileged caste. And likewise in Shoaib's life, if you see, his ally is from an upper caste.
Yeah.
And the person who's tormenting him is also from an upper caste. So that's also a thing that I wanted to show, how people fail people. And also it's our conditioning, our disinformation and our prejudices. It's the WhatsApp that's feeding you information, and that's why you just form an opinion about a certain community and you bring that hate and prejudice. So that is what was important to address. And the school episode was something that I was actually going to make a short film about it. And I couldn't, and I thought I should at least bring that here. And even in the script, actually, what happens, I mean, I cut out a lot from the script because I wanted to make it concise. In the script, actually, she comes home and she's looking at the Ambedkar photo and she's become comatose. And the son walks in and then he sees that she's not speaking, she's not eating, she's just staring at the wall. And to break her comatose state, he can't think of anything. So he looks at his feet, her feet, the cracked feet.
Right.
He goes and picks up a cream and start rubbing ointment on her feet. And that's when she snaps out of her comatose. There's that term, fugue state.
Mm-hmm.
She snaps out of that. She breaks down and she wipes her tears and she gets up and says, I want to file a case. And through the film, she actually wins the case, you know, and she's come back to the school as a cook. But I couldn't put all of that.
Yeah. No, there's a lot in the film. And there needs to be, because we do need to understand what drives these, what is it that drives these people then to, especially our characters, to leave their town, to leave their village, to leave their families, and migrate to the city where there's a job, because like everybody, they want to get ahead in life. They want to, have better for themselves, better for better for their children, better for the future. And yet they're forced, arguably, to leave.
So while making this film and writing it, I think I got a little closer to the question that I wanted to pose and probe as to why migrants leave. Like I said about migrants being like a major force in India, 500, 600 million is huge. And I try to understand this, and so most of, a large part of Indian economy is agrarian economy. It depends on agriculture. And about 60% of people live in villages, 60 to 70%. Yeah, and not much of that is known in the West world. People think that we live in urban, like mainstream media and everywhere, we only cover the urban world. We don't speak about villages. So there was this question to, and even in mainstream media and films, we see that there is always sort of this, the white savior complex. Here we have the upper caste savior complex that's shown in films. Like the marginalized community people are always shown with the same victimhood lens, and the status quo doesn't change through the film. But what changes for the upper caste person to be the emancipator, to the rescuer, and it's about the upper caste person. So it was also important with this migrant quest to understand the migration problem, was to know what drives them. So it's not just about, like you see in the film, it's not just about the money. It's about seeking your identity and wanting to have dignity. If you compare it with the rest of the world, in India, marginalized communities, and specifically Dalits, are gaslit into believing that it's their karma. That
It's their fault.
It's their fault.
Yeah.
Because caste is based on birth. You cannot escape. You cannot escape this hellhole because, like, even if I'm become like a known filmmaker, whatever, or I have some social capital and power and wealth, and not wealth, I'm a poor independent filmmaker. Yet it doesn't insulate me. So it doesn't go away, because for centuries you've been gaslit into believing that, because you're born to clean toilets, your progenies and your successive generations will still do that. You can't escape.
You can pretend.
You can pretend.
Right.
You can never find an escape.
Yeah.
And what protects is also endogamy. You can't marry outside your caste. There's this lot of talk about being liberals and, we should be progressive, we should not think that caste. But you pick up any newspaper in India, there'll be this 2-3 pages of matrimonials. Every single one of them, we want from our own caste.
Right.
So that endogamy sort of perpetuates that. And because you're gaslit into believing that you don't want to even fight back, I may be drawing an inaccurate comparison, and you correct me if I'm going wrong. Like the way, see, for instance, I didn't have any reference cinema to watch of my people because there weren't any.
Right.
So I looked to the West and I looked at, the Black racial history and the films made by Spike Lee and, Jordan Peele, all of them. Because I had some reference point over there, and I was trying to understand, like even in the cotton fields, like when they were singing hosannas and, they could say that this is wrong, you are putting me in danger and you're oppressing me, and I recognize you as my oppressor. They didn't have any way to combat, but at least they could identify that. But here what has happened is people were gaslit into believing that it's your bad karma and you're supposed to serve. This is your destiny. So people believe that. So there is always insecurity that we carried over generations. The mother's wounds, the feet.
The feet.
It is a metaphor for the intergenerational trauma that we've been acquiring. Like, I have born into an educated household, but it goes in your gene. It passes on. The insecurity and the imposter syndrome that you carry on. In that moment, I feel that to have audacity to say that I don't take this.
Well, right. Well, the mother turns it almost into a point of pride.
Yeah.
In that once.
She laughs it off.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I didn't want to come from victimhood, you know, because
Right.
she laughs it off saying that, you know, isn't it funny? And she cracks a joke about it. And instead of, you know, saying, oh, I'm so sad about it. Like, I thought that's a better way to bring black humor.
No, it's sort of natural. I mean, you know, because she senses her son's discomfort about her feet.
Yeah.
It's, you know, he sees it as a problem. He's something he wants to solve, and she's trying to tell him, no, you know, it's this. Anyway, some really just beautiful stuff. Obviously, between the parents and the children, between the siblings.
Actually, you know, the feet. I remember my grandmother's feet. And I mean, she died of schizophrenia and stuff, but like the stuff that she's seen in her years of caste persecution, not wanting to wear slippers. And, you know, even now, there are villages, Greg, where obviously there's segregation, right? Upper caste lives here, you know, the Muslims live here. So Dalits, if they walk, they can't cross the street wearing slippers. If you're on a bicycle, you have to carry your bicycle. You know? It's so intense. And I don't know if I've spoken about this. A lot part of Chandan is my own personal life.
Okay.
That I tapped into. Like, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's relevant, but like, I was told by my family and my people around me is that, you know, don't talk about your caste. Let it not be seen. So I created a fictitious last name. And I would tell, so every school, college, engineering, MBA, and corporate life, I always try to tag along myself with the upper caste group of elite intellectuals.
Mm-hmm.
And I would masquerade as an upper caste person.
Right.
And I thought
passing.
I was passing. Exactly, I was passing. And I thought I'll swing by and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But that created a deep sense of insecurity, because I'm always trying to see this one person is looking at me, this person will know. And the fear of abandonment that happened, it creates a lot of, you know, because people talk about how numbers and how benefits are gone, how, you know, generally the social capital is not there. Even cultural capital. But not people don't talk about how an upper caste person versus a lower caste person, the difference in confidence. Because confidence creates opportunities, your life goals, and everything that you dream of, you know. That is something that many people talk about. And it ruined me for 35 years to just, you know, and after my first film also, my best friend was one of the writers on the film, right? And even to him, I couldn't confide. And I'm shooting this film in the most religious city, Varanasi. And the whole city is in love with me. You know, all the priests and the
you
Brahmins.
can't tell anyone who you are.
And I'm so scared that once they know, all of this support, all of this is going to go away from me. And I hid it so much. And then there was this, it's a long story, I didn't want to get into it, but like there was it all happened because of a tweet. Somebody tweeted about it. And then I sort of proclaimed my caste identity publicly on Twitter and became a national news. And it unraveled. I had second thoughts about it. Like, I'll tell you how sinister this whole thing is. So entire family, you know, like extended relatives, everybody taking pride in me. That one of a guy is like, you know, filmmaker, and he's gone to Cannes and got a national award and all that. And they talk to their own spaces of offices or employment and, you know, their peer group and their social group. When this became my national news and it came in the front page of news, they got outed too. And they were ashamed. And they were mad at me. That you inadvertently outed us. It is so sinister, imagine. Like my own help, house help, my staff, and my driver. It took me, they kept asking, why is your picture in the newspaper? They couldn't read English. And it took me like 5-10 days of courage to sit them down and tell them. And they said, I'll give you a choice, like, this is who I am. And they said, you don't care about that.
Right.
So sorry for the whole.
No, it's, I mean, look, it obviously it's illuminating to the process of making the film and why it has such an emotional punch and pull, because you're really bringing out your own story. You've gotten actors who inhabit that, who really bring that out as well. I don't know if that's coming from their own personal experiences. I mean, they're or not. And whether in the casting process you really wanted to try and make a point, because whether it's coming from the oppressed, Chandan and Chib, and their families, or the oppressors, you feel how rooted this is in the society.
When the cast and even the crew, I've picked up people, and I'm very, very choosy about who I work with. Like, I take a lot of time to find the right people. And it's not about talent alone. I would want people to understand my worldview and understand the socio-political context of the film, and to be aligned with the morals of the film. It is very necessary for me. Like, there's one of the head of the department who's like very talented, very, very big. But if this person is not aligning with the morals of the film, I can't work. I will settle down to somebody lesser. That's fine. So every person on this film that has been come on board, now with the actors, what we've done is that they also come from upper caste backgrounds, some of them. And, I said that this is not just a film. This is a moral responsibility, because we all are trying to tell the stories of these million Shoaibs and Chandans and Sudhas with dignity. It is beyond me as a director, beyond you as an actor. It is our cumulative responsibility to offer them that dignity. And we are in a position to mainstream their stories. And once that happened, I said that I did a lot of workshops with them for 2-3 months about language, about the understanding of the space, the politics of it, all of that. And I said that no matter what you do, you cannot completely empathize with the lived experience of people. I said, actors are like, they're great. Like, you give them a scene, they'll learn the lines and they'll know where to move, what to do. But for me, more important was that you believe in it. So we traveled to the villages. We actually stayed in their homes. I used to do scene work in huts, in these dwellings. Like, I would narrate the screenplay to them under a mazar, which is like this religious shrine, and under a tree in a field. Then they really got in. Like, I give them reading material. Like, one of the seminal books by Dr. Ambedkar is this book, is a collection of speeches called The Annihilation of Caste. It is the most seminal text on caste. Once they read, they started unraveling their own privilege. They started questioning their own privilege. And they had a personal journey that they had gone through. Because then they start questioning everything around them. And I said, now you guys are ready to be in.
Yeah. You're trying to point out that the society itself is being held back, that the country is being held back by this tradition, by this discriminatory practice, because the most talented, because we're not allowing people to reach their full potential. How did that, what was the reaction to that? I mean, it's great because you're not You're not saying you need to do this because it's for someone else's benefit. We need to do this because it's for our own country's, for society's benefit, I guess.
As citizens,
Yeah.
our moral responsibility. Another thing that I feel is that there is a gap in, I'm going to sound like a socialist, but like, so the rich are the top 2%, 3% of the people in the country own the maximum wealth.
Right.
Okay. And there is a large majority of people who are way below.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the gap of the rich becoming richer and the poor becoming poorer since the time of colonial history has only increased. We are in a post-colonial world. The pyramid should have inverted. But the gap has widened way more.
Mm-hmm.
It is not just class. It is also caste. It is also the religious profiling and discrimination that has made it even worse. Because your people of the upper caste, who are literally, I'm telling you, 15% of the population, is monopolizing by 90% of most institutions, wherever you see. And that is a glaring, and that perpetuates over time. And there is a shaming that happens if there is affirmative action. So how does one get ahead? Because, the real problem is that the prejudice is in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
If the prejudice doesn't go out of the mind, then it'll always perpetuate, because people still shame me. Like, I get tweets saying, you're a hoarder, you are a reservation holder. Why does a person who's become rich from a marginalized caste still get to use the social, affirmative action?
Why do you still get to check that box?
Why do you get to check that box, and why do you get to get that privilege?
Right.
Because you are still 90%. Again, digression. But so there is a lot of shaming that is happening with social, the affirmative action, because it's called reservation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
So I've got this much
space has been
reservation.
reserved for.
Yeah. So that reserve feels like a privilege. I think the nomenclature is not that correct. It should not be called reservation. What it should be called is representation.
Mm-hmm.
Because you being 15%, you're monopolizing 90%.
Right.
But I come from the 25%. We are barely anywhere.
Right. We're not 5%.
Yeah. Like I told you about cinema, Hindi cinema. Like the biggest film industry in the world.
It is, yes.
And I am the only first acknowledged person from that community. Imagine this.
Yeah.
And if I were to, draw a very, very rough parallel, definitely not equating the atrocities and the oppression that the both communities have felt about different, and how it manifests is different. But if in India, I asked this question, if I were to ask you, can you name some black artists? Directors, writers, songwriters, movie stars, singers, pop singers, and 1,000 names pop on.
Sure.
And I believe the black population in America is about 15, 17%. And if you'd see it in the same way, and if I ask the same question in India, first person out of 25%. So there you have it.
Yeah.
Sorry if I went a little.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's important. So I guess the selection of the film to represent India was a bit controversial, perhaps?
I frankly was quite bamboozled that how did they pick this film? Because, I did get the feelers when we went for certification, because wasn't very welcomed because I also try to make it very smartly. Like I said, I've not named real locations.
Right.
I have tried to circumvent the problem of censorship, but try not to name a community, name a thing. And, it's still
Name
a fictitious
specific
place,
incident or something like that.
State
Yeah.
that I've created.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the real state.
Right.
Name of the state. And so that gave me a sense that it's not very welcoming. And I never expected that the film committee will pick this film. And because there are so many of the things that the film talks about, I get criticized a lot that why do you have to make a film about criticizing the country? I'm not criticizing.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't. No.
I'm merely existing and I'm talking about my people and what is going on. Because we need to also ask questions. Because I lived in the fear of censorship and I lived in the fear of and I thought yet I somehow need to, because as an artist, it's our responsibility to put it out there and put it in a dignifying manner. Also in the film, right? Like if you see, I have not tried to paint as black and white. My genuine attempt is to bring our conversations around empathy. Because I think the way the world is going on right now, I think there is too much of hate, there's too much of prejudice, there's so much of othering, labeling that is going on. And I'm afraid are we going into a point of no return? And I feel that we got to pause and step back, and I want to even sit across from my oppressor and have empathy. Because I'm continuing the cycle if I do the same hate cycle again.
Right.
I would also like to empathize with my adversary. Somebody I am ideologically different from. I think we should start doing that.
But you still have something in common, and how can we?
Yeah, because
how can we find that commonality?
We can agree to disagree.
Yeah, right.
We can agree to disagree, but we cannot discount the humanity that exists between us.
Well,
because we have to acknowledge.
That's the whole point of dehumanization, is to deny someone's humanity. But yes, I think at some level, yes. Hopefully.
Yeah, because at least sit down and have a conversation with
yeah.
me. Yes, you can say that. You can say I'm a hoarder. You can say that undue privilege and all that, but at least sit next to me and talk to me.
Right.
Don't shame me on Twitter and don't put me out and say that I hate this person. Let's all hate this person because he comes from this community.
Yeah.
That.
Well, unfortunately, hate gets people places in some cases.
Yeah.
Exposing
it is.
It's
Hate is business.
Yeah.
It brings a lot of power. It is, like caste, like people will deny that it doesn't exist. It was way back, whatever. But that is the biggest component how we choose our leaders. All politics, like how the actual politics of, electoral politics is so concentrated on caste. It's always played on caste lines. And yet people will say it doesn't exist. It's like the Schrodinger's cat.
Right. I'm just curious about the status of narrative non-Bollywood filmmaking in India and where the film fits in terms of the number of films and the market for the films, the ability to get films made and produced. It is the biggest film industry in the world in terms of the number of movies that are being made there, and the status of being an independent filmmaker, I guess, at some level.
Sadly, we don't have an independent film industry in India. I mean, it's there, but it's
not an industry in the sense
unless you make something that glorifies the government.
Okay.
So only then will probably get funded by the state. But otherwise, it's one thing that has happened is a recent phenomena that we're seeing is this need to, because like I said, the hate is seeped into the society so much. There is this aggressive, bullish sentiment. There's almost this violent societal structure that has happened. And I'm very afraid of that because you see it in cinema as well. Because most films now, the tentpole films, are this aggressive macho male wielding a weapon, half wounded, gritting his teeth and looking at the camera. Those are the films that are doing well. Masculinity, the uber masculinity is now the thing. Kind of men, kind of people are seen as weaklings. And that's what is happening as we see along. And also, like films of like this kind of action, this kind of song and dance, we don't get screens. Because they think that people who don't want to watch, and actually people did want to watch. But yet I think, and also it's a post-pandemic phenomena. Because they maybe don't want to consume in theaters, but they would want to. It's very expensive, it's very expensive to go to cinemas in India, because you take a family of 4. It's like the ticket prices, the taxes are too high. Then in the interval, there's interval. Where the popcorn and the cheese and everything is so expensive.
Right.
And it's an experience so expensive that a family of 4 will think twice to go see Homebound.
Sure.
If I'm spending 3,000 to 4,000 rupees on an experience, I would go to a tentpole film.
Right.
But there's no subsidy for films like mine. What if I offer that experience at 500? Maybe they'll come and say, oh, this is 500. Maybe I'll go and watch this film.
Yeah.
But we are competing against... We don't have independent cinemas like.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Was there ever a consideration of making the film as an English language film or shooting 2 versions?
I was wanting to make one for India, like a little more different, adding more fun, some scenes, some song, like not song and dance, I hate saying in the background, because it becomes a little more accessible.
Right.
But then I went with this one cut. But no. I mean, like I said, it would feel cheating. It would feel like I'm disloyal to the people that I'm making this film about. And, I'm going to make a confession. For me, to tell their stories with integrity and honesty, I might sound like a very idealist, but this was exactly my point, that their stories have to be told with a lot of dignity, and also impact was more important to me than nuance. And I went with it, starting with the writing. Like, I could have played with the form. I could have played with the structure. I could have gone non-linear. I could have done a lot of those things. But I sat down and realized that would take away from the power or the impact of their stories.
Right.
It will become, the cinema of it will become bigger than their narratives. And I could have probably gone, like if I'd done that, maybe I'd gone to a main competition of Cannes. I could have won some awards.
Right.
But for me, it was more important to create
Well, we'd be
impact.
talking about your filmmaking and not necessarily the film.
Yeah. Because, no, both actually.
Well, okay.
In a way, because I'll tell you why. Because, like, the impact that comes with the way it is, like, I wanted it to be impactful. Like, you get emotionally gutted and you question your choices. I could have eschewed from all the sentimentality, all of that, or the supposed exposition that you sometimes feel in the film. And it would have been a great film, but with lesser impact.
Right.
But what is the point? If our political and moral responsibility doesn't make us feel, but only the echo chamber of being clapped in a film festival, bunch of intellectuals sitting and clapping at you, and you winning an award, and nothing is happening to the people that you're basing these stories on. They don't even get to watch these films. What is even the point?
Yeah.
So, sorry.
No, don't.
Sorry, I apologize a lot. There's again a vestige of...
No, it's, I've been thinking about it a lot this year, because some of my favorite films of the year are films that, are, and not necessarily films that are going to be part of the Oscar conversation in the same way. But because there is a feeling that, they're not ashamed of saying, we want you to feel something from this film. And sometimes, we tend to say, oh, well, if it's too emotional, it's not, it's cheating.
It's cheating.
And it's really hard. And someone said something at a screening of another film, and it's really hard to make a sentimental film.
Yeah.
And not make it seem saccharine.
No, because, there's an also gaze. Because there is this whole, even to core cinema, there is an European idiom to to its whole thing, if you see, because from how cinema originated and, it's the post-World War, all of those things happened, and colder countries, all of those constitute to how you show emotions.
Right.
But in India, we show emotions very differently, We're sort of like the Italians. And, but I have to sanitize that. I have to make it palatable for a European idiom to be accepted in the West. When will the time come where this kind of thing of sentimentality or emotions and, why can't it also be part of cinema? Why should it be looked down upon?
Right. Well, it can be part of cinema, and it is part of cinema. But why is it looked down on? That's, I think, another point. But anyway,
that's a whole other conversation.
I have to ask. I have to. Your executive producer, Martin Scorsese, is kind of a well-known filmmaker. How did you get connected? What was sort of his?
Even by just saying it, and I felt that, did it happen? I still pinch myself, honestly, Greg. Like, to every independent filmmaker, I think I don't think I even dreamed of this place.
Right.
To be in. Like, when I started out, we were just like, I was quite the cinephile in the sense, like, I used to read and write about world cinema a lot. But, like, to imagine him lending his name,
it's more than that, I think. But
yeah. So I was talking about how that happened. It's basically one of my co-producers, Melita Toscondo-Plontier. She was my producer on Masan as well. And she knew him. And we sent the script to him, and he loved the script. And then he said, yeah, let's do it. And then he sent notes through her. So I did a couple of rounds of script with him, sent back and forth. And then once we finished the film, I sent the first cut. And then we did a couple of rounds with him. So not only has he lent his name, he spent about a year and a half with me, honing the film and understanding with me, like, what is your intent? And, like, he gave me this special, which I stuck to, that mantra that he said, that stay with the boys. And that helped me a lot because I could focus a lot on because we filmmakers are greedy, right? We tend to put so many arcs and so many ancillary characters. Like I said about the mother's story that had so much of it. Like,
let me go off in this direction.
But it's a segue. So to wrangle me back into the conversation to about the focus on the boys, his thing was like, and to do it selflessly. There is no reason why he's called the master of cinema. Just the kindness. Of course, we can talk about his oeuvre, his impeccable repertoire of films that he's carried and legends, but just the kindness. He did not have any reason to do this. He doesn't get anything out of this. And yet he does it because he believes in the humanity of the film.
Yeah. Well, there's plenty of executive producers that see a finished film and say, "Oh, I'll lend my name." But I just, I understood, and I appreciate you talking about his involvement in actually crafting the film, and helping you through that process.
Definitely.
Well, the film is Homebound, directed by our guest, Neeraj Ghaywan. I guess U.S. audiences can find it right now on Netflix?
Yes, it's currently playing, yeah.
But it did have a theatrical run, or small theatrical run.
Yeah,
and hopefully May
one.
Again. We'll see what happens. But it is there. It is available to watch, and it is very much worth watching. So I appreciate you coming here and spending some time with us and talking about the film.
Thank you. I had a great time chatting with you.
Oh, well, thank you. I had a wonderful time, too.
Yeah.
And if you enjoyed our conversation, please like and subscribe and share. We do want people to see Homebound. It's a window onto India, modern India, and but it's also a window about human nature and I guess our ability to get beyond hopefully feel and understand how we can get beyond our prejudices and our privilege and create a better world. Empathy. Yes. There we go. Yeah. I love it. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for enjoying Inside the Art House.
Thank you.
This episode of Inside the Art House was produced by Wishing Well Entertainment and Raphael Sbarge, with on-site production by Noreen Dickerson. Our supervising producers are Thomas Cassetta and Miles McCreary. The episode was edited by Rick Pratt, with sound mixing by Thomas Cassetta. Our musical theme was composed by Isabel Engman and Gerardo Garcia Jr., graphics by Jenna DeAngelis, and social media marketing and web design by Stephanie Peters. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. See you next time on Inside the Art House.